Hello, this is Scott Hansen with the Dell Enterprise Technology Center. In this demonstration, we will use WSMAN to set the BIOS boot order on the Dell Lifecycle controller with firmware version 1.4. We are now on our system where we will execute the winrm commands to the Lifecycle controller. We have several batch files and XML files we'll use today. In this first one, we will execute winrm using the boot source setting method to check the boot order of the current configuration. So let's go ahead and execute that. We simply pass it the IP address of the DRAC controller, 192.168.0.70. So we'll execute the command and return the current boot order. In this example, it returns two instances, one for IPL initial program load and one for the UEFI section of the Lifecycle controller. So we see here that we have our optical drive as the current assigned sequence of 0. The embedded NIC is 1 and the hard drive is set for 2. So we want to go ahead and use this method to change our hard drive to boot first, and then the optical drive, and then the NIC. So let's go ahead and see how we do that. So first let's look at the file where we execute the winrm command for the change boot order by instance ID method. We simply pass this the instance ID of either IPL or UEFI, and we pass it the change boot order XML file. So let's take a look at the XML file. In this file, we simply pass the source parameters for which instance ID we would like to boot. So now we'll simply copy and paste. So we'll set the hard drive first, and then we'll go back and take the optical drive, and then finally we'll add an additional line so that we can put the NIC in for the third boot device. So paste that line in, go back, copy and paste the NIC, and then we'll simply save this file. So now we have a hard disk, optical, and NIC for our IPL boot sequence. So now let's go ahead and change the boot order. Again, we pass the IP of the DRAC address and the instance ID of either IPL or UEFI, and now it will read that XML file. Here you see it executing the winrm command. Command was successful. Now if we check the boot order again, we'll see that the current boot order will still be the same, but we will have some pending assignments waiting for us to submit the job to the Lifecycle controller. So now we see the hard drive is pending assignment of 0, and then we have the pending assigned sequence of 1 for the optical drive and 2 for the NIC. So now let's go ahead and look at the files where we submit the job. So we will use winrm to create a targeted config job, and again we will pass it the IP address of the DRAC controller as well as the XML file for the boot order job. So let's go ahead and take a look at that XML file. And you see in here we simply create the config job, specify the target, specify the reboot job type to reboot, and here we can either schedule a start time if we have a maintenance window, or we can use the time now parameter to have the job execute immediately. So now let's go ahead and submit this job. Again, we simply pass it the IP address. It will read the XML file, submit the job. It will return us an instance ID, so we have a job ID where we can check the status. So let's go ahead and check the status on this job ID. You get job status, IP address, and job ID. Let's paste that in. So here we see that it's ready for execution, so we actually executed this quick enough where we could catch the job status of ready for execution. So it's in the queue ready to be executed. Now if we check it again real quick, we should see that the job is successfully scheduled. So now with the time now parameter, it is actually executing right now. So if we go ahead and look at the remote KVM, we'll see that the system has already rebooted, and we've sped up the boot process, so this will happen quicker. It's now entering the system services, so it'll start the UEFI interface. See that in a second here. Initializing the UEFI, and it will now execute our job that we scheduled. So this took about a minute, but we cut down much of the time. So the job executes, and then the system reboots. So now if we go back and check the job status, we should see that the job successfully completed. So let's go ahead and do that. Get the job status again on the same job ID. And we'll see that the job did complete successfully. So now if we check the BIOS boot order, we should see that the IPL, initial program load, should be set to our liking. So, and it is indeed correct. We have the hard drive, and then our optical drive, and then our embedded NIC. So this will be the current boot order. So that concludes this demonstration. I'd like to thank you for your time. If you have any questions or would like to download some of the sample scripts and files that we use, please visit us at delltechcenter.com. Thank you.